Hi, and welcome back to the Engine Builder Show. I'm excited to be sharing a bunch of what I believe is going to be really useful content for you this week. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the secret power of 168 and how you can use it within your business schedule. So stay tuned and we'll dive right in. So many years ago, when I started my first show, Today's Business Leaders, which is a show where I do long form interviews with entrepreneurs where they share their entrepreneurial journey, what they've learned and the lessons that they can share. I started that show out by having one of my friends, Lisa Malice, on there. And Lisa Malice is a strategic time coach and optimization coach. I've worked with her personally, and she's been incredibly beneficial to me. She's worked with members of my team, and I've referred her to many of my clients as well. And one of the first things that she took me through when we went through that process is she reminded me, which I think it's easy for us to, forget this, that all of us have the same amount of time in a week. So we each have 168 hours a week. And so the first exercise I did with her, and this is now something that we use consistently, which I'll touch on in a minute for our team. But the first exercise I did with her is I took a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. It's ideal to do this on paper. I've done it on paper and I've done it in a spreadsheet. But essentially what you do is just every 15 minutes during your day, you log what you did. So if you were checking email, if you were in a meeting, if you were, shooting a podcast, whatever it is that you're working on, if you're working on sales activities or production or projects, you just log what you do every 15 minutes. And once I did that, I had a real accurate picture of what I did every week. And the ideal is to do that for 2 weeks because in a leadership role as entrepreneurs, we're growing a business, things can vary week to week, but a 2-week span gives us kind of some snapshot of what may be realistic or average. And so once I logged all my time over that 2-week period, I then met with Lisa and reviewed it and said, wow, I'm spending a lot more time in email than I expected. I'm spending a lot more time on social media than I expected. I'm, working on this, I'm managing this, or I'm working on this project, and it added up to this amount of time. And it gave me a very objective view of how I invested my time. And as entrepreneurs, as leaders, when we're trying to grow a business, the biggest asset that we will have throughout our entire journey is our time. How we use it, where we dedicate it, who's asking for demands of our time varies a lot. But no matter what, we all, on this planet have 168 hours a week. And by tracking what I did, it gave me a real honest, awareness of what I was actually doing with my time. And anytime that I go through that exercise, it just brings to light, where my actual attention is being focused. And if I'm not progressing fast enough in a project, or if I'm not hitting revenue goals for the company, or, if a department is struggling, I can look back and go, oh, well, I wasn't really investing time there. So of course it wasn't moving forward. But I can look and say, well, I was consistent in investing time here. So these things were well managed, or I did get results, or I was consistent in investing time, on Facebook, but it really didn't yield results. So what can I do to change that? So even though it's not the most fun, exciting exercise, the results from it are really powerful because it gives you that tracking of, what you're actually doing. So that was years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I think, is when I first went through that activity, maybe even before that, because I've been working with Lisa for quite a few years, maybe even 10 years now. But then I used to do that periodically for myself. And then when I had the opportunity to join Alex Sharfit's program, Simple Operations, they teach that the first thing you should do when you join the program is to do this time study. And then ultimately you roll it out to your whole team. And so now our team actually is in the middle of a time study as we're shooting this. And we do a 2-week time study for every team member once a quarter. That allows the team member to have a good assessment of, what they're spending time on and where their focus is. It also allows their manager who's, leading and supporting them to see where they're spending time. and it creates a lot of awareness around what's happening when. And so there's two great benefits that come out of that when you do it yourself or when you ask, your team to do it. When you do that, whoever's doing it, yourself or a team member, you can quickly identify, okay, here's the things that probably should be delegated or eliminated because they no longer serve the business, or they no longer should be in your role. They should be handed off somewhere else. And then also it allows you to, have a working copy of what that person actually does every day. So if they're out on vacation or if they move on to a new role and are no longer with your company, you have a great snapshot of what their actual time investment was, some of the tasks they did, and it gives you a much more complete picture of a role. And so the power and magic of 168 is that we all have those same hours. And if we're willing to be objective and track where we're actually spending our time, again, it can be uncomfortable for some people. Some people love it, but a majority of entrepreneurs don't love it. But when you do that, again, it gives you that real honesty of like, here's where I'm actually spending time, or here's where my team is actually spending their time. And you can determine, revenue leaks, processes that need to be updated, work that's being done that you forgot was being done, that should no longer be done. There's just a ton of really valuable insights that come out of it. And what I've found is when I go through this exercise, when I go through it with the team, it allows me to be a lot more intentional around how I block my time and how I set up my strategy in my calendar. And when we're intentional about how we're spending our time and we know what our pattern has been in the past, but we know the result we want, we can then shift behavior and we can change those time blocks in our calendar. I was just talking earlier today with my friend Joe Graham, and we were talking about how we're updating and kind of building out some new things in our sales department here. And Joe is just an amazing professional in the sales space and does great coaching and consulting there. It's somebody I definitely recommend to you. But he was sharing with me, he's like, when I set up sales teams, when I coach my clients, I recommend there's 2 golden hours blocks in the day for the salespeople. 9:30 to 11:30 is one of the blocks we decided on, and then 11:30 to 2:30. And those are the times where our sales team does cold calls, sends emails, does outreach. They're solely focused on prospecting. And as we do that, we get 20 hours throughout the week of straight prospecting. And I have yet to walk into a company that is struggling with revenue or not really happy with where the business is at growth-wise that has time blocked and really dedicated time and focus to prospecting, because that's one of the things that slips off the radar. If you've been doing the sales and you're starting up your company, you're still a smaller company, or even when it's a bigger company, it's so easy to allow busy work and meetings and the easy things to overtake the priority time that we should be spending on prospecting. So my encouragement to you today is do a time study like that. Track every 15 minutes. You can write it in a journal. You can write it in a spreadsheet. It doesn't need to be a fancy format. And just put down a simple but detailed line that says, here's what I was doing for the last 15 minutes. And then after evaluating that, be intentional and change up your schedule and your calendar and actually block out times where you're going to focus on the priority items that you want to work on a daily basis. Because if we're willing to spend even 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day as a small time block every single day, we can rapidly, build momentum and get towards our goals. But if we keep thinking, oh, I know that's important and I'll make time for it soon, then we can go weeks or months without engaging in that critical business activity. So time blocking, creating that container and that space in your calendar where you're going to focus solely on that activity is really, really crucial, because it's a huge leverage point. If we're willing to implement that routine, put that structure in place, we can really get the leverage that we want to grow our businesses. So I would encourage you to consider that today. If you need any support around that, do let me know. And I have one other quick request for you. We are working hard to make sure this show is as valuable and actionable as possible for you. So anytime you tune in to listen, you get a ton of insight and value. So if you made it to the end of this video, if you could drop any kind of comment down at the bottom that you watched all the way to the end here, that would mean a lot to me, because I want to understand what's serving you well, what you'd like to hear more of. So just say hello, drop a comment, thank me, or say what part you liked, or anything easy. If you made it to the end of the podcast, go ahead and put a comment down below the video, or you can email me directly at gabearnold@bmeweb.com, and you can share your feedback there. So whatever's easiest for you, I'd love to hear from you. I really appreciate you spending time here today. And I hope you'll think about how you can be more intentional with your time. And tomorrow, we're going to talk about some more mindset things and some interesting things that are going to help you as it relates to, really re-engaging productivity and creativity if you're feeling stuck. Appreciate you taking time to tune in today, and we will see you on tomorrow's show.